What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Merrick Korach, and I'm your host for CANdid Conversations. Thank you for joining us for our third episode here. If you guys have caught those first two, we would love to hear from you, feedback about those. And also, if you've heard from it, they may have been a bit chopped up, which we hope to, as we get into the groove of things, get it to a point where it flows much better in conversation, so that you guys get exactly what we're experiencing right here in the room. We know there's a difference between being in person, seeing people face to face, seeing the room and expressions and the emotions that people go through. And so we're going to just try our best to deliver that through our spoken words. And so bear with us as we continue this process. But today we have a conversation around community connectedness today. And that runs deep, both with problems and solutions. And we hope to dive into that from community members here in Evansville, with their lived experiences, what it has meant for them. But before we jump into all that, let me introduce everybody. We have Latreance Taylor here with us. We also have TJ Summers, Kelly Fehrenbacher, and Kim Armstrong here representing.
Hello.
And we're going to just jump right in with Kim sharing with us the resident feedback form. It's something, again, for anybody who's not familiar with it, a way for residents or anybody in the city to go online and have their voice heard through a very simple intake form. And with that being said, Kim, take it away.
Hello. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
So we put out the CANdid Voices form and got some feedback from our community members. We heard from residents from the north side of town, from the west side of town, and even areas in the county. Okay. Which I'm one of those people. I live in the county, but I care about what happens in the city.
There we go.
So anyway, going through some personal roots and belonging parts of the answers. When asked what makes them feel connected, residents shared heartfelt examples of how connection is felt with when familiarity is present. So one person said, I feel connected to some of my neighbors after living here for 20 plus years. We try to keep an eye on each other. Faith and family are near. Family close by, church members in the neighborhood, neighbors greet each other on the regular. And then also traditions. Events like the West Side Nut Club Fall Festival bring people together, reminding us how shared experiences foster belonging. And then we went into the barriers. There's barriers to connection. Some of the challenges that we heard about was social withdrawal. People don't come out like they used to. We don't even see our neighbors unless they're leaving their home or coming home. So kind of like that drive-by thing going on. A lack of acceptance or friendliness. Some people just don't want to be bothered. There's a vibe that says stay away. I don't know if that results from COVID or what.
Maybe a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And then technology and lifestyle shifts, right? So one person said, when I was a kid, everyone was outside. Now people avoid being bothered. And so then there were some other additional barriers that were noted, like not knowing when events are happening, not knowing what events are happening, a lack of time or energy, and then a sense that their voices don't matter in decision making. So why come to the table if it's not going to be heard, right?
That's
if
right.
The voice isn't going to be heard. And so then we also asked, what does connection look like in practice? And residents described several things that help them feel more engaged. For one, shared community events like festivals, garage sales, coalition meetings, things like that. Also, just simple neighborly gestures like waving, greeting, checking in, how's it going?
Picking up trash.
Yeah. All those like just neighborly gestures. And then communication tools. like flyers, newsletters, social media to raise awareness about opportunities to get involved. So then, kind of reflecting on those answers that we got, as we work together toward a more connected Evansville, these are some questions community members invite us to consider.
Okay.
So one thing is, how do we rebuild trust and familiarity in a time of social fragmentation? Mm-hmm. Good question. Mm-hmm. What kinds of events or traditions can bring people together, not just once a year, but regularly? Mm-hmm. Are we, as neighbors and leaders, inviting others in or unintentionally keeping people out? Mm-hmm. What role does visibility and communication play in fostering belonging? And then ultimately, what do we do as a collective? What do we need to ask ourselves and each other to build a more connected Evansville? And I think that you guys are going to get into that a little bit too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I had a set of questions I was going to ask myself, but actually hearing from the residents and having questions specifically coming from them, I think I might take some of those.
There you go.
And kind of plant that into the episode today.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kim.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Yeah.
It's such a resource that we found out. It's such an easy way for folks to tap in and have their voices heard in this way. And then it comes to us to be able to advocate for and amplify those voices. And so, again, if you haven't already, please feel free to either go online or reach out in a way that we can get your voice heard on these episodes and into the solutions that we're working on throughout our community. With that being said, again, I want to welcome our guests. Everybody here is representing a neighborhood here in the city, and everybody's doing good work. And so I would just like to open it up, starting there. My question is, for you guys, if you can, share your lived experience, and how has that lived experience shaped your understanding of doing community or what community is?
I'll go first. I would say whenever I was younger and I was hanging out on the porch with my grandmother, doesn't matter who walked past, she would say something to them or ask them their name, ask them how their day was going, and different things like that. And now, like what you said earlier, you don't really see anybody outside doing much of anything. Just the other day, I visited my dad over on Gum Street, not too far from Lincoln School. And as I left, I looked to my left and to my right, and I didn't see anybody out. And it's like 5:45 in the evening, and it wasn't hot outside. So I'm not sure where everybody was, what they're doing, or what, but it seemed like a ghost town.
Yeah.
And long ago, it was the opposite of that.
Yeah. Where did your grandma stay at? Where do you remember being on the porch at?
Right there on Gum and Garvin.
Gum and Garvin.
Not too far from Lincoln School.
Yeah, right there in Uptown.
Yeah. So I think as far as like neighborhood, I think it's called Baptist Town.
Yeah. And so I guess you may be similar in this regard, in that during that time that you remember saying or seeing your grandma talk to folks from the porch, you probably had a group of neighborhood friends or a network of people that you would maybe hang out with and do things after school with, on the weekends with, and programs and things that you can get into as a youth. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, long ago I remember Impact over there by the fire station. They did a lot with kids in the community, different things like that.
Yeah.
And also, too, riding bikes was a big thing.
It was a big thing.
We stayed on the bikes.
Yes.
Sometimes I see 30, 40 kids on bikes just doing different things, having fun.
Yeah. Now, that was like the main means of transportation. If you weren't walking, you'd get on your bike, and, we'd make our way around town. I remember going from Bossy all the way to Eastland Mall because I had the time on my hand as a kid. Got to ride back, put our bikes in the back of somebody's car on the ride back, but we made it out there. Yeah, you bring up a good point that, that doesn't happen all too often now. And I think it's been a whole host of things. If we go back in time, I think having TV being such a commodity where anybody can purchase it, got people off of their porches and inside their houses. And then we got privacy fences in people's backyards. And so, again, instead of spending time on the porch where you're visible, that privacy fence kind of then put that disconnection between community. And now you're kind of just doing life by yourself at that point. And yeah, it'd be remiss if we didn't talk about COVID and what that did with the dynamic of being in people's spaces, inside and out. But it's shifted. It certainly has shifted. DJ, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure we're going to unpack a lot more. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have more lived experiences and stories from Kelly and Latreance. Stick with us.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We just heard from TJ Summers about some of his early growing up experiences right around Uptown and what that community connectedness looked like. Now we're going to open up the floor for Kelly and Latreance to share. So if either one of you guys would like to jump in at this point, feel free to do so. I'll ask that question again. From your personal experience, what have you seen shape your understanding of what community is or what community connectedness is?
My name is Latreance. Well, mine is a little different. I grew up in a time where we idolized drug dealers, pimps, and hustlers. And in my community, it was a lot of that going around. So at an early age, I thought that what community is supposed to be, you know. So I took a liking into that lifestyle, which caused me to grow up very hard throughout my life. And so I grew up thinking that the pimps, the drug dealers, and the players, the hustlers was what a community is supposed to be like. So I mimicked that lifestyle, which cost me 12 years in federal prison. But upon my release of getting out of prison, I ended up meeting Merrick. So once I met him, my whole mind frame shifted from my lived experience and watching him do what he do in the community, which it took effect on me. So I mimicked him. I started mimicking positivity. So through him, I learned that a community is supposed to be where we come out and we have fun together. We help one another. We don't slander one another. We don't rob and steal from one another. So through the grace of God, he helped shape my understanding of what community is supposed to be. So, like I say, I just mimicked him, and I'm on the ground running.
Hey, I hear that, and I appreciate it, Latreance. Anybody who's listening, I did not pay him to say that, but Latreance really has been somebody since I've met in the neighborhood, just talking about like real lived experiences and being able to bring that as an asset to the community that he grew up in. The work that we've done alongside each other has been great thus far, and I can only imagine what it's going to look like moving forward. So thankful to have Latreance here with us today. I have a question following up with that. You talked about the community that you grew up in, and maybe it's not necessarily the thing that was most beneficial. What kind of community did you find in that, though? What did that look like as far as, let's just say, like respect or love or appreciation or looking out for one another?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a lot of love involved in it, because, like I say, we was tearing each other down and tearing other people down. But we brought a false sense of respect, where we thinking just because we are these gangsters in the neighborhood and these drug dealers and stuff and the people that want to mimic us is showing us respect, which to me, that was negative respect. You know, it was only respect because of the things we was doing and the things we was able to get, and everybody wanted to be a part of that. So they respect us on a negative side instead of a positive side. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kelly, how would you say that community connectedness and your understanding of community has been shaped throughout your experience?
Well, I grew up in church, and my parents were heavily involved in church. And so for my younger years, community was church. You go to church, you all have the same thing in common, and you all do the same thing, and you all have each other's back. And so with that background, I really thought that my community perspective was the way and the only way. And what changed that and shift that is at the age of 15, I started doing international missions. And then I realized not everybody eats 3 meals a day, and not everybody looks at community the same. And so I think the combination of watching my church family reach out to people and be the church in unique ways, and the combination of going to international missions gave me the opportunity to look at community more open and more that I'm coming into your community, and how can I be community with people versus how can you be community with me?
Yeah, and so, you bring up a good point, because whenever you're somewhere else, you have to ask different questions, right? You have to approach it in a different posture. Would you say that there was like trust building that needed to take place, or what were some of the tools that you use in order to maybe fit into a community or build a community?
Well, I have to go back to my mama.
Yep.
My mama, she was about 5 foot tall, and she didn't have any stature on her, but she would go and knock on doors in our neighborhood, and she would make her homemade chocolate chip cookies. And she would knock on the door and say, "Honey, I am so glad you're in the neighborhood. I don't allow any drugs on this block. I don't allow anything to happen on this block. I call everybody in, and I have your back because I'm old school, and I sit on the porch and I watch." And those people would move out in a heartbeat. Because they were there to sell drugs. We were in a neighborhood that sold drugs, and they would move out in a heartbeat. And what I remember as I got into community work is it really doesn't take a whole lot. I think a lot of people want to put programs on it, and they want to put this perspective on it, but really it just takes a grandma to go knock on a door with some homemade chocolate chip cookies and say, "Oh, by the way, I watch. I'm present." And so one of the things that really caught my attention as I look at community is you really just have to be present. Are you willing to be present with your neighbor? No matter what they look like, no matter what their belief system is, am I willing to be present with them? And what shaped that is when going into international missions, you walk in, they have a different language, they have a different way of everything. And it allowed me to learn those questions as I moved with community, that community, to be community with someone, they don't have to look like me. They don't have to walk like me. I can be community with someone just by being present and willing to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a tool for anybody to be able to take and use and take forward with them, is that not to overthink it. Although I think the culture that we're in, how we're raised, I think we try to find where we're comfortable in and stay there. And if we can't do that, we oftentimes don't venture out into anything else. But this is just an encouragement to anybody that's listening. It's far easier to show up and put 2 feet down, whether it's in a neighborhood or an organization or an event or one-on-one with somebody, than we give it credit to. We don't have to do fancy things. We don't have to have the secret sauce, if you will, or the silver bullet. To Kelly's point, oftentimes it's that simple as just showing up and being a person in front of another person. And from there, through that shared experience of our humanity, I think we figure out how we connect, whether to that person or to that community. To that end, anybody willing to share how they do that in their community? How do you simply see people where they are, not asking them. And, as I'm talking, Latreance, I'm thinking about you, how oftentimes folks who are in hard situations, whether it's abuse or drug or crime or whatever that might be, oftentimes they don't feel like they have an opportunity to get that off their chest or talk about it or find somebody that can relate to them. I know you've shared stories in the past about how you're just right there with them in the trenches. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, through my experience, coming from where I come from, which people call the ghetto, the slums, and all of that, I just call it a home.
Mm-hmm.
Because and oftentimes a lot of entities will come into our communities and promise the residents this, promise them that, promise them that. But once they feel their agenda, they pack up and they leave, right? So oftentimes people in the ghetto, we don't believe in words. We believe in action. So just say, for instance, when I met Merrick, I seen someone that had a similar background, grew up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, took his life and did something positive with it. Instead of tearing the neighborhood down, he's trying to build the neighborhood up. You see, so now I'm watching a success story. You see what I'm saying? I'm watching someone that comes from my neighborhood, someone that not only talk it, but he actually walk it. You see what I'm saying? So when you see that a person leading by example and you watching him do that gives you motivation instead of someone coming in your community just talking, So that's what people in my community, they like to see. We learn with our eyes, so we like to see the actual work being taking place, and then that gives us something to follow, something to want to follow.
No, it's a good point. I feel like our communities, and I say ours because a lot of us come from disinvested neighborhoods. If not, we work with or see where that's happening at. And there's a lot of siphoning of resources, to your point, whether it's a church, a not-for-profit organization, government, politics. They come in on the backs of the people with promises and empty words so that there is a gain for them. And oftentimes, to your point, Latreance, at the end of the day, they take what they want, they take what they can get, and then communities are left still holding on to those empty promises. And so, yeah, we have to do something about that. I think a piece of that is the long journey of rebuilding trust and getting people familiar with one another, and not just familiar, building relationships and being able to lean into the action that it takes for tangible impact rather than just using the words and not being able to capitalize on that. So when we come back, what we're going to do is dive into that a bit more. What does it look like to start to bring the solutions, or at least the crucial conversations, to those spaces where we find residents at, and what we can do moving forward as individuals.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
All right, folks, we're back. And like I said, we're going to start to dig into now what it will look like to start to build those bridges back, build that trust back. What do we need to do as practitioners or as residents or organizations in order to come in and ultimately see what we want in these neighborhoods, which is connectedness, which is community building, which is people lifting each other up, and organizations coming in and doing what they do best, just fitting into that puzzle rather than doing 2 and 4 folks. What does it look like to come alongside, build trust, and do it alongside and with people? And so with that, I would just like to open up the floor to anybody that would like to speak into whether it's the neighborhood that you live in or the neighborhood that you're working in. What does it look like? What is it going to take to reestablish or rebuild trust?
So I think trust is built on just being present and staying consistent in it. Like you said, people respond better with action if they see something actually happening in the neighborhood and not just seeing papers and flyers about we're going to do this and we're going to do that. If they see these things actually happening on a consistent basis, they will be happy to be a part of it.
I agree. And we're already pulling out a common thread of just being present does a whole lot of good. Anybody else want to speak to that from your experience of work or as a neighbor?
Well, I work at Hope City Church, and we have pop-up every Friday from 12 to 2. So the first thing is we're consistent.
What is pop-up?
Pop-up is a grill out that we do every Friday. We cook, and in the winter, we make casseroles and more winter food. And from 12 to 2, we have open doors for the community. And we used to be outside, but it's been so hot. We have it inside for cooling. Mm-hmm. And we have a combination of neighbors, families that come, and people that is, experiencing homelessness come. So it's a mixture of people from 12 to 2. And the reason I bring that up is if we just had the program itself and we handed out food, yes, we're being consistent. So we've only missed like 3 times. And that's when there was 8 inches of ice, mm-hmm. some things like that. But we've not missed. But if we only handed out food, then we're just food. But our whole purpose is relationship. We mm-hmm. want to actually know our neighbors by mm-hmm. name. We want to sit down with them. And we do things purposefully every Friday to make that happen. One of the things that we do is we have volunteers that's their job is to be at the tables, to talk to people, mm-hmm. not with an agenda, not with a purpose, but to actually know who they are. Mm-hmm. And then through that relationship of seeing them every Friday, you have more relationship. Mm-hmm. And so in my opinion, it's that I don't just work in Jacobsville. I am with my family and my friends in Jacobsville. Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing to be consistent, be present, but also be willing to walk in relationship. Because without relationship and without the knowledge that, hey, I am here, I have resources, I have some stuff to give, but I also, my neighbors and my friends that have became family in Jacobsville have gave me way more than I could ever give them. Mm-hmm. But that takes a consistency and that takes a willingness to lay down my agenda of what I think your family should look like, what mm-hmm. I think you should look like, what I think you should eat, what I think you should walk in, how I think you should dress. Mm-hmm. It takes me laying down my agenda and willing to be like, hey, I am here to be present, to shape community through relationship. Mm-hmm. Let's do it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know you probably have several stories, but would you mind sharing maybe one story of, again, the consistency of pop-up? And although you're providing food and a place for people to gather, what kind of relationship has transpired out of that space?
There has been so many. I'm trying to pick one, but there is a neighbor that she had all these flags that would be against the church on her porch. And she, when I first met her, she said, "I hate the church." And I was like, "Oh, that's okay. You can come to pop-up from 12 to 2. And, that's cool. I've been in points in my life where I've hated the church too. Yeah. So we're fair, cool. And so she started coming, and then one day she goes, "Can I do a chalk drawing for pop-up?" And I was like, "Sure." I didn't care what she drew, but she drew hamburgers and hot dogs through the parking lot. And the next thing you know, we know each other mm-hmm. as friends. And she's coming, and now she's a part of the neighborhood association. Now she's changing community. Mm. And it was all because I didn't get offended by her hurt feelings to the place that I'm coming from, mm-hmm. that I'm willing to be who I am and to actually be the church that she hasn't experienced yet. Mm-hmm. And to be that in her life. And also know that she has so much inside of her that I need to have mm-hmm. and I need to grow. Mm-hmm. And so that's just one of the experiences. And I was so excited because she just got put on the board of the neighborhood and she's just rocking it. So
I love that. No, that's something that we can learn from, whether you're coming from the church background or community development background, or if you simply just want to start getting plugged in to things that are taking place in our city and how you and the gifts that you have can make a difference. Again, it simply starts by showing up, by being present, by building relationships with folks. And you can probably think about that in your own life. Those who you've invested in, have built a relationship with, probably have a pretty good understanding about each other, how to communicate with one another, the differences of you guys, but at the same time, the things that bring you together as well. And there isn't any difference than doing that work in places that need an extra bit of TLC. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
And it probably was she probably never felt genuineness coming from there, because I had a lady tell me one time that she never had someone that was patient with her, you know, because she used to give me all type of backlash. You used to be a drug dealer. You used to be one of the ones to tear down the street. So instead of me getting mad at her and bashing her, I just sat there and listened to it, because at the end of the day, she was speaking from her heart, and she was telling me something that was truth. You see, so I would just start popping up and talking to her and stuff. She liked the iced tea, so I would bring her tea and stuff like that. So over the years, we become real close. We become real close, and actually, she called me this morning and told me she's proud of me. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely. And so, would you have just another scenario of where, or a suggestion of how we can build trust back into the neighborhoods that have been broken, or the trust have been lost?
By listening to the people of the neighborhood, because we'll come in and we think that, especially not being from them neighborhoods, we'll come in and we'll think that we know what's right for them, you know, but they the ones that live in the neighborhood. They the ones that experiencing the negativity of the neighborhood and the positivity of the neighborhood. So they there almost 24 hours a day, besides going to work and stuff in that neighborhood. So they there, so they know what needs to be done in that neighborhood, what's being done in that neighborhood, you know. So I just think that we should sit back and listen to the people of them neighborhoods, and instead of throwing their ideas and their wants and needs out just to fulfill what we think is best, you know, sit back and listen to the people, because they crying out to us for the help and telling us what needs to be done in that neighborhood. I just think that people just need to listen to them and take their ideas and incorporate it with our ideas, you know.
Yeah, I love how you put that too. And that's something that we've mentioned here on the show before, or something that I say often is, to your point, those folks who are in the situations are the closest ones to the problems, are also the ones closest to the solutions because of that lived experience. And yeah, we can hear from, if we listen and actually hear what they're saying, I believe that we can position ourselves in a way that can come alongside and advocate for what we're hearing, amplify for what we're hearing, but then also find that middle ground where what they're saying it to be true is a solution, and what we're doing as programmers or organizations or churches can come alongside just that and say, all right, if we're already doing X, Y, Z, and this is what we're hearing about the folks that we're trying to serve, how does that come together, and what does that solution look like? I would be more so on the side of hearing from what residents are saying and just acting on that. But I get it. Organizations have to do organization things. They have to go through all the red tape and abide by the rules. And if that's what you have to do, hear me out, guys. There's still a way to meet residents where they are and to tap into those solutions that we're hearing. Maybe that looks like shifting programming around. Maybe that looks like bringing something to where folks are rather than offering something and expecting folks to come to us and to participate in the programs that we have created, thinking that those are the solutions. It would not hurt to lean into what we're hearing in the streets. Would anybody else like to add to that before we go on to this next piece?
Speaking of red tape, that's one of my biggest pet peeves.
You and me both.
Like these organizations, they have the ability to help people, but they say, oh, if we're going to do this for you, we can't do that, or we can do this, but you have to do this for us. And I don't like that. If somebody needs help, they need help. Right?
If we're in a position to help,
just help them out, give them this, just to help people without all the barriers. I hate that.
Yeah. An example that comes to mind, right, of how we put programming above people and their flourishing is that I was talking to an individual that was homeless and needed a place to stay. He got himself into one of these shelters in town, but part of their programming is not only will we give you a place to stay, but then you go through this course, and by the end of it, you'll have a job, and we'll get you on your way to having a better and stable life. This guy had already secured him a job that would have been above and beyond what any job he would have got at the end of that program. But these folks said, if you're going to stay with us, you can't have that job. You have to go through our program, and then we can get you a job at the end of it. And that just seems a little backwards to me. And so, to your point, TJ, that red tape can get in the way about just the very practical things that get people ahead, or how we can show up for folks in big ways that really aren't that big at all. And so with that being said, guys, we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to come back for this last segment as we wrap all this up. Stay tuned.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for hanging out with us today. With this last segment, we would just like to end with what barriers to connection might be, where we find ourselves. This can be the greater Evansville area, neighborhood specific, or even the relationships that we find ourselves in between individuals, organizations, and government. And so with that, I would just like to open up to you all and the experiences that you've had, whether, again, growing up in the neighborhood or doing work in it. What have you seen, and we touched on red tape a little bit, what else have you seen as a barrier for people to be connected and stay connected?
I think sometimes what keeps people separated, especially when they're in the same space, oftentimes people, they think that they're better than their neighbor or better than the person that lives right up the street from them because of this or because of that, or like I have this in my front yard, so I'm better than the people on the next block, and different things like that. And something that people don't really talk about is like stereotypes, like within the same neighborhood, and sometimes people of the same color stereotyping each other, and that's something people don't really talk about, but it's there.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that is a common thread, at least my upbringing and living in Evansville, is just how apparent division is, right? Whether it's west side and east side, whether it's white church, black church, or white person, black person, whether it's this side of town or the other, this organization or that. What we see is that there's just so much division in that regard. And I get it. Some of that division is rooted in systematic power that we've had here in Evansville. People who have owed money or who have generations of family who grew up here and benefit off of, how Evansville is set up. It just makes sense, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to stay that way. What about you, Kelly?
Well, I think often, we don't take time to be present. We don't take time to ask people's stories. And so whether, a lot of people talk about being racially profiled, but it happens in all directions. So people might take a look at me and feel like I have certain feelings towards them, or I have certain thoughts, or I have a certain background because we don't know each other's story. And I think one of the things that is a barrier is that, quote unquote, those people. So those people are the people, right, that you don't relate to. Those people are the people that you're afraid of. Those people are the people that, and it's always, well, that's those people. And if we would get rid of the to those people and see each other and take a moment to understand that it doesn't matter if you're white, black, red, yellow, whatever, that there's a story behind them, there's a person behind them, and I'm going to find out who they are because they're a person, then in any program, agenda, organization, it's going to fail if we're not willing to walk in relationship. And if you are working in community and you're working with an organization and you still have those people as your vocabulary, you need to really take a hard look at that, because that term, it has so much behind it of separation, because I have to come to a place where I don't see someone different than me. Our stories might be different. How do we relate, and how can I learn from them, and how can they learn from me? And so I think that's a barrier, is when those people becomes okay to say, and it becomes okay to be a part of our vocabulary and a part of us being present or not.
Yeah. Rather than us and we and family and community, right?
Right.
It's not my problem, it's their problem. I can see how even just looking through that lens can just set people up for failure, whether it's intended or unintended.
Yeah. For me, I think it's funny. Where people be like, "Well, I wear Air Jordans, and you wear Walmart shoes." I laughs at them, because me personally, I don't wear no Air Jordans. I don't see the even math, even spending all that money for a pair of shoes. I can go to Walmart and get me a pair of shoes for $20. It does the same thing that the Air Jordans do, keep my feet warm. My feet ain't hurting, And then I was just told the other day, a guy tell me, I live in a 3-bedroom house. And then he tell my homeboy, you got a 1-bedroom house, but your house is on the same block as his house. So, hey, you ain't doing too much better. Y'all in the same rundown neighborhood,
Yeah.
So it tickles me to just hear how people separate each other and living in the same space. Like, I grew up in Oakdale projects. Everybody in the projects, that's our space. Some doing good, some doing I'm doing lesser than others, but we still poor. Your mama still worked the same job my mama worked. Your mama and daddy still live paycheck to paycheck. So just because they was able to save a little bit more money and get you a pair or Air Jordans doesn't make you better than the child that had to wear the dollar store shoes, the pay less Walmart shoes. So I think that people get a false sense of they better than one another just because of the clothes they can wear, the car that they drive. You can have a car that ain't only got but one what the thing's called, spark plug.
Yeah.
The rest of them is shooting fire back up out of them. It still gets you to work. So, I just think that people need to separate that and understand that God says that we're one. We're one race, the human race.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what color you are, where you come from, or nothing. If God can tell us that we are one race, we're one people. You know what I mean? So I feel like that people need to go back to what really matters, and I believe in what God says is law. That's law. So if He says it, that's what I believe. I don't believe no one's better than the next just because you got a little bit more money than the next. At the end of the day, when we leave, we ain't taking nothing with us. Nothing.
So what ways do you show that, and what ways do you help people see that?
Well, I used to be arrogant. I used to be real arrogant, and that comes from the criminal lifestyle, But once I went to prison and I lost everything, that was a humbling experience for me. You see, so now I understand that if I continue to think that I'm better than this person, and just because I got $3-4 more than this person, that it doesn't make me better than you. So I believe that everything was taken from me to ground me and show me where I really supposed to go in life, where I really supposed to be in life. So I just believe that I was stripped of everything to humble me and let me know that I am no better than the next person, and the next person is no better than me, rich or poor. I don't believe in middle class. I don't believe in that. I believe it's two categories: either you rich or you poor. You know.
Yeah. But to your point, even in that big distinction, there's very little that separates.
There's very
us,
little that separates
right?
you.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that separates you is your mentality.
Let me ask you this then, to tack onto that. What are ways that you've either, and this is for anybody, you were able to break down that barrier? And it sounds like humility might be that key piece of it, but yeah, what does that look like practically to meet somebody where they're at, whether you believe you're above or below them?
I once worked with a guy who it was no secret that he wasn't a fan of people who looked like me. He wasn't like outwardly nasty with it or anything, but people could just kind of pick up and tell like he doesn't really mess with people who look like me. And one day he ended up working with me like very closely, and at first he didn't really say too much to me. He just kind of kept it strictly work related. And as time passed, we started talking to each other more and more. And one day he came up to me and said, it's no secret how how I feel about certain people, but after being around you for so long, this was his words. He said, you people are all right.
Yeah.
And
So he actually used that term that Kelly was talking about.
And instead of me taking offense to that, I took it and just flipped it around and said, you know what, like, not all people are the same. Not all black people are the same. We're all different. And like, I'm glad it took me to see that, like, not all black people are the same. So I seen him not too long ago, and he actually has a black friend. It's not me, but he does have a black friend. And I feel like that's because of me, and he's seen I was cool. He said I wasn't causing trouble or talking to him a certain way or anything like that. So
It does take us showing up in those spaces to paint a different picture or write a different narrative for folks who haven't experienced that before. If all they have is what they've been told and what they experience from afar, it makes sense. But to your point, DJ, once you start to be in the spaces where that's no longer the case, it's hard to fight that. And I think we see that in politics all the time. Like, we say things behind each other's back. We get our Twitter fingers or social media fingers going because we can, and we're not in front of somebody. I highly doubt that would be the case if those folks are standing right in front of each other and able to have the conversation about the thing rather than about the people. So you're right.
Racism, it definitely doesn't stand up well to contact, like constant contact. Most people who are racist against a certain group, where they live at, there aren't any of those people, so they really don't know of all the differences.
You're right.
So yeah, I think to go with that, people only know to be racist against, and it's usually just knowledge that's been passed down to them. And so until you're willing to be in their area, until you're willing to be consistent, until you're willing to build relationship, you can't tear down those barriers of those people,
Right.
Because they've never had the opportunity to run with it.
Correct.
Thank you guys for sharing that. It never seems like we have enough time to pack or unpack everything that we want to talk about. But I'd just like to thank you guys for sharing this time with me, for being folks in the community who are making tangible impact both in your individual lives and the lives of those you find yourself in contact with. And like last week's episode, this might be one that's ongoing. We invite you guys back to continue to talk about what you guys see happening on the ground and how your guys' actual experiences with folks help shape the community for the better. So with that being said, I'd just like to thank everybody for tuning in with us. Join us again here in 2 weeks. We're going to stay in the realm of people and place, and so the next topic will be just about that. If I can leave you with any nugget for today that you can take very practically into your life, proximity matters. Intentionally going to spaces where you can learn about other cultures that will force you to walk differently and posture yourself differently It's possible. If you guys want to get plugged into that, you can reach out directly to myself or Echo Housing and Community Development. I can get you plugged in with these folks who just shared their life experiences with us. And I think we can be better for that whenever we come together in this way. So think about community, think about connectedness, and think about the barriers that keep you from experiencing that goodness. Until next time, we'll see you guys.